Good morning. My workshop is Multiple Pathways to the Student Brain, based on my book by the same name. I wrote this book because when I first started talking about the brain about 20 years ago, I could tell you everything that we credibly knew in about 1 hour, and all of that research was based on rats. So at that time, we had to make a leap from the rat to the student. And there were some misconceptions being made in that leap. Then all of a sudden, there were new techniques, and we were able to look inside the brains of learners as they read or did math or remembered something. And then there was just a tremendous amount of research. I wrote this workshop based on a model I created that ascertained all of the pathways involved in learning so that we could organize this information, talk about it, and apply it. Now, there are many pathways involved in learning, and some of them overlap and some are arbitrary, but this model allows us to examine the research and apply many different aspects of it to our lessons. This is one of the most difficult times in the history of education for educators. I'm guessing that you're probably feeling pretty overwhelmed or over-zoomed. Well, this workshop is not going to make that worse. This is designed to help you to organize, simplify, structure, and energize your lessons. So first, we're going to start with what is really true about the brain and learning. And then we're going to explore multiple pathways. And you will create a boilerplate lesson for a unit. So you will come to the workshop with a unit that you are getting ready to teach, whether it's in person or remotely, and we will work through the multiple pathways to enhance and energize that unit of instruction. So you'll get to work with your colleagues in breakout sessions and come up with ways to apply this to your content and your teaching preferences. We're going to look at many pathways involved in learning, and some of these are invisible, so we can't really see them, but they're tremendously impacting the learning of students. Some of the questions that we're going to explore will be, why can my students read but they can't comprehend? We're going to look at some invisible factors underlying math difficulty, perhaps 80% of math difficulty. We'll look at the most important factor in learning that you may be overlooking, and the skill that predicts achievement and life outcomes. You'll learn how to take advantage of the most important modality for learning. And finally, that ever important question that I always get asked, can students really listen to music and work at the same time? We're going to look at that question and some of the pathways involved in that. Now, I'm very fortunate that at this point in my life, two lifelong passions have finally come together. I've always had an interest in helping struggling learners. And I first started teaching high school English, and my students couldn't read. But at that time, there were no college courses in helping secondary students with reading difficulty. So I went back to school for a master's, and they designed a special program addressing reading difficulties at the secondary level, and I became a reading specialist. I had a love of research. That was my second passion, always looking for answers, trying to understand learning difficulties. But sadly, the research on learning and dyslexia was not very helpful at that time. Students were still struggling, and we didn't understand why. One day I was standing in my living room and I glanced down at a newspaper article, and it said that these researchers were giving brain scans to college students with dyslexia. And I said to my husband, I want to do that. I want to become a neuroscientist. I want to get brain scans. Maybe now we can figure out what's going on. He's like, can't do that. But somehow I didn't make that happen. I was trained as a neuroscientist and in education. And I did my dissertation giving brain scans to college students with reading difficulty. I was awarded a postdoctoral fellowship in the Department of Neurology, and I was beginning to look at other learning differences and this new field of educational neuroscience when Hurricane Katrina hit, destroyed our lab and our work. Well, at that time, my speaking career was taking off, and prior to that, I had been teaching at the community college, and I was still interested in translating this research for educators. I'm very happy to be able to share all of this research now with educators. I know that you are hungry for credible information, and you are trying to address learning difficulties now when students are having even more trouble focusing and learning. So here I am today. I'm combining my passions for research and for helping struggling learners and helping educators recover their passion during what may be the most difficult time in the history of education. So I hope you will attend the workshop. We will have some laughs. We will do some experiments, and you will leave energized with lots of strategies from which to choose. Hope to see you then.